Welcome back to the channel, and thank you Elsa for suggesting I do a video on ENFJ INTJ pairings, which is what we're going to get into right now. If you're new here, my name is Doris. I'm a personality coach, I'm a relationship coach. I also have a master's in psychology, and in my practice I help people have uncomfortable conversations with their partners. So right off the bat, the biggest strength that I see in the ENFJ INTJ pairing is that both have good and great access to introverted intuiting. In other words, both types are future focused but open to subconscious and cosmic insights. If their visions and long-term goals align, with the ENFJ's dominant extroverted feeling focusing on emotional and relational aspects, and the INTJ's auxiliaries, or trying to be helpful, extroverted thinking, which is focusing on logical analysis and getting things done in an efficient and effective manner, there is literally no end what they can do. This pair can build empires, be they in the form of a family or a business or rallying around a good cause. As always, the biggest challenge is also baked into these functions, and in this particular pairing, I'm very interested in the positions that the functions are in. So if you want to nerd out with me a little bit, stick around, because we're going to do that by way of John Beebe's model of applying archetypal energies to the positions of the functions. Now, let's start by reviewing the love profiles I prepared for this pairing. I actually created one of these for all potential combinations, so if you'd like to talk through yours, go to my website and book a free curiosity convo and we can have a chat. So the first page is just a little information about how to use this information going forward. And then if you're new to type, these letters are a shorthand that describe how we use our brains to make meaning of the world. E and I are about where our psychic energy tends to flow first, or in other words, our conscious awareness can be drawn more to the outside world or more to our own inner landscape. S and N describe how we process information. One is more tactical, practical, concrete, while the other is more abstract, conceptual, and delights in dealing with potentials, patterns, and possibilities. T and F are about decision-making, and whether that's more analytical, objective, or more values-based, subjective. J and P is often described as a function of how much time do we think we have, with the J leaning more towards time is scarce, so we have to use it effectively, and the P being more comfortable with the flow of things and orienting towards an abundance of time. All of these preferences have light and shadow sides, advantages and disadvantages, and as I mentioned here, they can all be overdone and do harm if we rely on them too much. There is a lot of writing on these slides, so feel free to pause the video to read them at any time, but we're going to move on. At a glance, we can see that the ENFJ and INTJ have the N and the J in common. That's a great start. And then energy and problem-solving preferences are balanced, which is also a great thing if you're like me and see relationships as opportunities for growth and learning. Opposites attract for a reason. Our psyche wants to be balanced, and being in relationship with people who are different from us is a great place to practice new ways of being. Since we're talking about romantic relationships, allow me to read the overview descriptions for these types so we're on the same page. People with ENFJ preferences are romantic, idealistic, committed, and loyal. They enjoy talking about the relationship and values, and they may be overly accommodating. They are happiest in personal and relationship-centered and expressive environments that encourage individual growth and development. And you can provide affirmations and nurturing to them, encourage self-nurturing, and communicate feelings and values to connect with them. People with INTJ preferences include partners in their visions of the world, and they might be attracted to vitality and an outgoing partner. People with INTJ preferences also tend to have a model of how relationships should be in their head, and then become frustrated when the partner is not following the script. They can be intensely loyal and caring without openly expressing affections. And they tend to be happiest in innovative intellectual environments that encourage competence and universal truths. And you can show your interest in their ideas and theories, asking questions to understand and encourage them to explore and innovate, and recognize that their critiquing is a sign of appreciation. And here we are. So now we come to the slightly more nerdy piece of actual cognitive dynamics. I have described the first two, so the dominant and the auxiliary functions here for both types. Again, feel free to pause and read. But to help situate us and help you understand the point I'm going to make about what I think the biggest challenge is for these types, allow me to digress a little bit and talk about the function stack as a whole. So first of all, it's not even a stack, it's more like a compass, but a stack is easier to visualize. Basically, your psychological type code contains 4 letters out of 8 options and 16 combinations. The middle 2 letters is the meat of Carl Jung's type theory. They are the 4 functions that Jung described as sensation, intuition, thinking, and feeling. And they can occur in both what is called attitudes, which is that energies piece. So, just to be confusing, you can have extroverted sensing and introverted sensing, extroverted intuiting and introverted intuiting, etc. Now you have 8 functions, and everybody has access to all of them, but in a different order of preference. So what happens also is that these functions work in tandems and in opposites, which means if you have super aware access to one of them, by definition, the opposite is going to be unconscious. For ENFJ, the order of preference looks like this. We have extroverted feeling, introverted intuiting, extroverted sensing, introverted thinking. And then in the shadow sides, we have introverted feeling, extroverted intuiting, introverted sensing, and extroverted thinking. For INTJ, the order of preferences, as we believe it happens in the psyche, looks like this. They lead with introverted intuiting, followed by extroverted thinking, and then introverted feeling, extroverted sensing. And then in the shadow side, we have extroverted intuiting, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, and introverted sensing. Now, the astute observer will have noticed that the thing the ENFJ brain can't not do, FE, harmonizing, connecting, is way down here in the 7th position for the INTJ. Similarly, the thing the INTJ does to be helpful, TE, organizing, segmenting, shows up way at the bottom for people with ENFJ preferences. So what do these positions mean? We have one theory by John Beebe. He is a Jungian analyst and thought leader in the type community. He went on a self-reflection journey and associated the following archetypal energies with how these functions show up for him. The first function is what he called the hero or the lead. And this is the thing that our brain can't not do. It's where we go, it's the thing that develops first, that we gain the most competence in because we're most comfortable in it, which means we're seeking experiences that help us practice. And so with the practice, we just get better at it. And then eventually it becomes a thing that we just do all the time and that we rely on. So that's the hero, followed by the good parent, or also called the auxiliary function. And this is how we'd like to be helpful to others, but also how we like to protect ourselves and protect others as well. The third function is called the eternal child, or the tertiary. And this is something that when we see the function mirrored in the behavior of someone else, we kind of look up to it. We engage in it ourselves for relief. It's where we relax. It's something that we can do for a good while, but then eventually if we're going to spend too much time here, we're going to get stressed and tired. And then the fourth position is the anima or animus. This is what Jung called the contrasexual inferior function, and Linda Berens in her model calls it the aspirational. So this is something that technically, because it is the opposite of our dominant, is stressing us out when we have to behave according to this function, or when it is triggered, when it is activated, or when we see other people engage in it. So it can be stressful, but also we know that as we age and as we get older, our psyche wants to be balanced. So we will seek partners that will have this function higher up, or we will have friends or mentors because we instinctively feel that we can learn the most from them because they embody this function that we're trying to get better at. Beebe called it the higher cause and mission. This is about transcending the right roles, and it's like it serves as a mediator to the self, which, if you're watching my video on the map of the psyche or the model of the psyche from Jung, that might make a little more sense. Now, going into the shadow functions, in position number 5, we have what Beebe called the opposing personality, or the archetypal energy of somebody that is kind of in opposition to the hero, because it's the same function but the different attitude. So it can complement and fill in the blind spots for the hero function, but it can also come out as kind of passive aggressive and avoidant and a little contrary. In the 6th position, Beebe called it the witch or senex, which is again the opposite kind of to the good parent, so you could call it the bad parent, which means this can be your own inner critical voice. When somebody is activating, or when somebody is using this function and talking to you from this particular point of view, then you might feel criticized. Number 7 is the trickster energy. So as opposed to this innocent child in the 3rd, you have the little more devious, low-key kind of energy vibe in the 7th. The way Linda Berens describes it is that you can put yourself in a bind, like you're trying to do good, but you're actually working against yourself. So this can also come out in terms of where you try to take advantage of others, or where you try to trap yourself or others, and it's a little bit more of a bratty child, right? And a little more rebellious. But not least, we have the daemon, the demonic, or the daemon, and that is opposite of the inferior function. So this is often described as it really, like you're not yourself, you're absolutely undermining yourself, but at the same time, it can also provide the genius stroke of insight that you need to fulfill yourself, or to come into integrity. Either way, this is usually the function that when we see others engage in it, it really trips us up and it really triggers us, and we can't quite pinpoint why, but we really don't like it and it's uncomfortable. So again, John Beebe came up with these archetypal energies through his own journey. They may or may not mirror and resonate with your experience of the functions, and that's okay. But I did want to look at an example of the trickster and demonic positions for the ENFJ and INTJ, because again, I think this is where potentially one of the biggest issues is going to come up for this pairing. So imagine the ENFJ and INTJ are a couple planning their wedding, because that is usually a little bit of a stressful situation. So the ENFJ is obviously confident with all her friends, and she knows all the things that go on behind the scenes, and now she has this of making a list of tables and where everybody is going to sit. And that is going to be really stressful for her, because the dominant extroverted feeling function is all about harmony, is all about connecting, is all about keeping everybody happy. And how do you do that when you know stuff that other people don't know, and people who don't want to sit together, all that vibe, right? So now imagine she shares this with her INTJ partner, and the INTJ partner says, well, just order them alphabetically then. What is she doing? ENFJ, under normal circumstances, the extroverted feeling, harmonizing, connecting, keeping the peace, making everybody happy function, makes her like a great, very skilled negotiator and diplomat. But this is a stressful situation, and she wants to please everyone, and there is no pleasing everyone. So this sends her nervous system into a state of alert. And then she comes to her partner that she is going to spend the rest of her life with, and they say, well, it's not a big deal, just do it alphabetically. So from that dominant extroverted feeling point of view, she's very likely to interpret the INTJ's logical approach as dismissing her feelings, as dismissing other people's feelings, and not understanding the value of emotional labor that goes into making a seating chart. And because this is an already heightened situation, her reaction may be a little bit exaggerated, and she might start losing her cool. She might feel attacked and invalidated, and then respond defensively, saying, what are you talking about? People's feelings matter. You can't just dismiss this. Don't you see how important this is? So if we're thinking of a relatively young and undifferentiated ENFJ, maybe in her mid-20s, there might also be an extra kind of shadow projection at play, where she feels reminded of all the kind of authority that she might have an issue with anyway, and rigidity, and then projecting that onto the interaction as well. And so the INTJ's well-meaning solution might land as more rigid and more controlling than it was intended. So now from the INTJ's perspective, extroverted feeling, this emotional outburst and reaction, because their own extroverted feeling is in the trickster position, it can be reactive, especially when caught off guard by emotional dynamics that they didn't anticipate. For example, like this outburst from the partner after making what they thought was a valid suggestion. In this case, the ENFJ emotional outburst will probably feel overwhelming to the INTJ. And so they might think, you know, what are they over? She's overreacting. It's not that big a deal. Why is she making it personal? Because extroverted feeling is not a place where the INTJ hangs out a lot, because it is in that trickster position, they don't have a lot of practice with it. So emotional outbursts will catch them off guard when they haven't expected them. And because they don't quite know how to interpret these emotional outbursts or any emotional situation, they might get annoyed or feel manipulated. And so what do we do when we get annoyed or we feel manipulated? We deflect and we make fun. So a deflection can look like the INTJ then trying to brush it off and brush it under the carpet and saying something like, okay, whatever, just do what you think is right. Remember, the ENFJ is very heightened, very sensitive. So they're going to hear this as, oh wow, you don't care, you're dismissing me, you're leaving, you're abandoning, you're stonewalling, right, withdrawing. And again, because this is a heightened situation already, the INTJ can also dip into this trickster response, which would then be hyper sarcastic and something like, okay, sure, feelings solve everything, and, you know, just make fun of it. And this, for the extroverted feeling dominant, is a huge red flag, and they might spiral and start questioning the whole relationship. But you see how we got here, right? One is the ENFJ is operating from the place of what her brain can't not do, extroverted feeling, and the INTJ has no familiarity there. She just visits FE from time to time, and depending on the context, sensitivities are going to be dialed up to 11, and there is just a lot of potential for misunderstanding. So how do we break this cycle? This might be a very close to home example for a lot of you. So how do we break the cycle? Whenever you can feel your tensions rising, my invitation is always to take a break, go into your separate corners and kind of regulate, right? Cool off, take deep breaths, do whatever you need to do. And then a helpful thing for the INTJ to say might be, I can see that this is important to you. I'm not trying to dismiss your feelings, but how about right? So it's not that you're never going to get to say your helpful thing, extroverted thinking. It's just that you want to make sure that your dominant extroverted feeling partner is in a place that she's ready or he's ready to hear it. And you also want to avoid sarcasm as much as possible. If you see that they're already triggered, and you know that they're already triggered because they're your partner and you know them, just acknowledging the feelings already usually goes a very long way, and holding space for them, right? The helpful thing for the ENFJ to do is, of course, recognize that the INTJ is just trying to be helpful, right? As I always say about my husband as well, with his introverted thinking analysis, he's not trying to piss me off on purpose. It's just the way his brain is wired. It's not that the INTJ doesn't care about the beef that is going on behind the scenes. It's just that they're trying to be helpful in getting this seating chart done, if we stick with that example. It also reflects their discomfort with emotional situations in general. Knowing what you know about treating others the way they want to be treated, you can invite the INTJ into that conversation with you. And this is, again, a tip for the ENFJ. You can say, I am feeling very upset about this. I know logic is your strength, and I really appreciate that, but this situation is triggering for me. So can we talk about the feelings first? Okay, so in other words, type knowledge can take the sting out of a lot of interactions. And that's why I love it so much, because you, especially us feeling types, I have ENFJ preferences myself, we like to take things personally. And once you look at this framework and once you understand that people are not doing anything on purpose, it takes the sting out of a lot of these interactions. And so the personal feelings are acknowledged and can be respected. And then together you can find a solution with, because both of you, and that's why I love also people of differing types together so much, because you literally fill in each other's blind spots, because a well-balanced solution incorporates the feeling and the thinking functions, right? So I hope this example illustrated that with type knowledge and about not just what the functions do, but also the positions that they're in, can help the ENFJ feel validated and supported in her emotional concerns, while the INTJ avoids feeling overwhelmed, and with practice they might become more skilled at expressing their emotional landscape as well, bringing the couple even closer. At the same time, the ENFJ over time is going to realize, hopefully, that the extroverted thinking part of the solution is a beautiful complement to the extroverted feeling that they bring to the table. And this was probably a lot of information, but just to round out the profiles, because I started them, I want to show you the other pages as well. Here you have information about communication preferences. Then there's a page, more potentials for conflict and how to solve them. A page with information about stress and how to get out of it. And finally, a very basic information on core motivations and talents. And this, of course, is based on the Essential Motivator model by Linda Berens. And that's all she wrote for now. I hope you found it helpful. If you'd like to see another type combo, please let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, there's a chance you like the next one as well. I'll see you there.